Did you hear about Veronica Wolski?
I did not.
Okay. Veronica Wolski was a Jefferson Park anti-vaccination activist, and she died from COVID-19 at the age of 64. Now, I was following...
Was she... let me just ask.
Sure.
Was she against all vaxes or just the current one?
I think the current one. Now, let me punctuate this. A friend of mine on Facebook said that they knew Veronica Wolski when she was a Sanders supporter. And she kind of then went down the QAnon rabbit hole and, went a little bit crazy, I think, with these conspiracy theories that we follow on social media. Wolski was a QAnon supporter known for demonstrating on a bridge over the Kennedy Expressway. She started an uproar at an area hospital last week when she insisted they give her a medication meant to treat parasites in animals and humans. Okay, so this is from Block Club Chicago, reported by Alex V. Hernandez. Right off the bat, I am so fucking tired of people talking about ivermectin as only being a horse dewormer, because it's not. There is a human application of this drug. It's been around for 40 years. There are human applications. And when I see journalists dismissing it by suggesting it's only for use treating parasites in animals, I find that this is just as offensive as MAGA people with their conspiracy theories that they dump on the left.
Yeah, it's almost like just preempting your story by smearing it.
Exactly. And that it really, well, no, it shouldn't shock me that the shit libs are resorting to this. You know, I've been accused of like being a Trumper because I find myself supporting more things towards the center. I consider myself very leftist. Very leftist. I operate from my conscience and what's right and not tribal. And if I see the left is doing something wrong, I'm going to call them out as much as I'm going to call out the right, as I did for many years, until it unfortunately became how apparent the left isn't that different from the right, at least at the highest level of our public officials. But let's get back to Veronica Wolski. Okay, so the article immediately tries to smear anybody that would advocate for the not prophylactic use of ivermectin, but the use of ivermectin as a treatment after people have been vaccinated. Because apparently there has been some success. Ivermectin is not something that I've read is supposed to be prescribed prophylactically as a way to prevent the virus. You need the vaccine for that. But if you've got the vaccine and you've caught Delta, apparently ivermectin has helped treat people who've been vaccinated as well as people who've been vaccinated who have autoimmune issues, like Jimmy Dore was talking about this.
We should say that neither Jerry nor I are doctors,
right,
or virus experts or scientists. So, consult your own medical advice from your own personal physicians, and do what you think you need to do for you.
I wouldn't even say do what you think you need to do, Ed.
And actually, I shouldn't even say that.
Do what your doctor. Do what if you have a doctor that you trust, that's the only person you should be consulting with. And I'm only, sharing what I've heard about ivermectin, not because I'm advocating for it, but because I've read that there have been applications. But yes, you should consult with your doctor. But apparently there are doctors who are prescribing it as a... Now, here's the reason that these studies that people are asking for ivermectin aren't being done. It's a 40-year-old drug and the patents have run out. So do you think Big Pharma is going to waste money on proving what the potential benefits of that drug might be when they've got a brand new vaccine that they're rolling out that they do want to patent? I don't know.
Of course not. I mean,
it does make you wonder, though.
We should be very cognizant of the fact that the pharmaceutical industry is trying to make money here. So we can't just blindfold ourselves and just take the blue pill and move forward. We have to make sure that what we're doing is the right thing. But I am not the person you should be taking that advice from. You should be talking to your doctors, and then And then if you make a decision, that's on you. It's not on me. It's not on Jerry. You know, the one thing I can say is be considerate of others.
Yes.
You know, if especially, you know, I wouldn't really want to talk too much more about, you know, about the vax, but, you know, we could do just a side conversation of, you know, masks and stuff. Some people are so insanely crazy and resistant to wearing a mask in a social situation. I mean, be courteous of people when you know you're going to be in a small space, even if you're skeptical of the effectiveness of a mask. Be aware that, you know, be courteous to the people around you who may or may not have issues regarding that, whether they have a physical condition or some type of immunocompromised situation where, you know, it would be safer for them if you were wearing a mask. You know, and it's not like you have to go around 24/7 everywhere you go with one on your face. But if you're going into a drugstore, a grocery store, if you think you're going to be, even if you're going to be outside in a crowd somewhere, consider the options there. You know, I mean, people, be considerate, you know.
It's a simple matter of respect. And here's the problem, Ed, because this has become so politicized, nobody has respect for the other side because, again, they're feeding into that tribal mentality. We're right, you're wrong. This is because, you know, because our tribe, our side tells us that not to trust science, because our conspiracy theories that have taught us not to trust government automatically start falling down on the doctors and medical scientists that the government is relying on to help get people through this pandemic, this crisis. And this is exactly what's at the heart of what happened to Veronica Wolski. Let me get back to her story here. She contracted COVID-19, and her QAnon supporters ended up harassing the local hospital when she said doctors would not treat her with a parasite medication. Their description has died, according to county officials. Veronica Wolski, 64, died Monday at her Jefferson Park home, according to the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office. Wolski's cause of death was pneumonia due to COVID-19 infection, with hypothyroidism as a contributing factor, a spokesperson from the office said. Now, Wolski, known for demonstrating on a bridge over the Kennedy Expressway, was hospitalized at Amita Resurrection Hospital 2 weeks ago, according to Vice. Documenting her hospitalization on Telegram, Wolski said she asked a doctor to administer ivermectin and was refused, Vice reported.
Okay. Yeah, this story's a little different than what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
She hadn't taken ivermectin. Nope. She must have been resistant to taking the vaccine, and I know some people, for all numbers of reasons, have been hesitant. You know, and it's understandable.
She wasn't vaccinated, went into the hospital after she caught COVID. Now, I don't want to make light of her situation, but if you're not going to trust doctors and medical science, then why would you go to the hospital after you refuse to take the vaccination?
Well, I guess it depends on which doctors you're trusting, and you know, we know that some doctors have been influenced by the pharmaceutical industry. We can't deny that that's happening. I mean, I have a history of when I was younger, I used to go to the allergist's office because I have a couple allergies, and I used to see these guys come in from different pharmaceutical companies dropping off samples of different pharmaceuticals.
They're big suitcases.
Yeah, and if you think that kind of thing isn't influencing what type of decisions the doctors are making in cases of your care, you're fooling yourself.
Ed, they will treat doctors to junkets, travel junkets. And I remember when I've seen pharmaceutical reps coming into doctors' offices, much in the same way you described, it wasn't guys. It was very attractive blonde women in short skirts. I'm not kidding. And you'd see them carrying the suitcases, bringing in the briefcases, bringing in the pharmaceutical samples. I mean, it's like Madison Avenue marketing and advertising. It's what the pharmaceutical industries were engaging in to get the doctors to start prescribing the drugs that they're overcharging everybody for.
Oh, and you mentioned junkets, and it just brought into mind the Fugitive movie with Harrison Ford.
Yes.
Because and if people aren't familiar with that movie, you should go see it. But
great Chicago
it's a great film. Yeah, great Chicago film.
And it's got our hero Harrison.
It basically Harrison Ford plays a doctor, Richard Kimball, who was involved in one way with either doing clinical trials for some type of pharmaceutical, for some type of drug, and apparently he got to the point where the guys who were trying to get this drug approved out of the clinical trials went so far as to have his wife murdered by the one-armed man. If you don't know that story, and so he spends the whole movie trying to clear himself, and so he goes and digs up all the evidence to find out that actually the entire situation of him being framed for his wife's murder was all about getting this pharmaceutical approved for production.
And if I'm remembering correctly, I don't think that it was ready for production, or there were some side effects that were delaying it, but they were pushing it through because of all the money they would make.
I don't remember the exact details, but I remember there was a part in the movie where
Provasic. That was the name of the drug. Provasic.
Yeah, it was a heart medication, a fictional heart medication that they were trying to get approved, and I guess there were some medical tests where Dr. Kimball had been trying to clear his name, and he discovered some X-rays where it was all the same person instead of a whole bunch of different people, and so a bunch of shenanigans was going on. Well, I know this is a fictional movie, but it makes you wonder what goes on in real life in pharmaceutical circles.
Doesn't make you wonder. It confirms what you suspect is happening in pharmaceutical circles.
I'm just going to do my Kermit meme again here.
Yeah. How many times do we find out drugs that have been approved years later, they find all these side effects that they should have known before they authorize the drugs for use? So continuing with the article, and Ms. Wolski, and this is coming from the article. This is not coming from me, so I don't have to worry about the usual disclaimers I just gave previously. Ivermectin is a medication for humans and animals approved by Food and Drug Administration to treat infections caused by parasites. Much like hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin is gaining traction in some circles as a rumored cure for COVID-19, but it is not authorized or approved for prevention or treatment of COVID-19. The FDA, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, American Medical Association, and the drug manufacturer have warned against using it to treat COVID-19. The National Institutes of Health's COVID-19 treatment guidelines panel also has determined there is insufficient data to recommend ivermectin for treatment of any viral infections. And there's no data because they don't want to continue researching it, because it's a 40-year-old drug that won apparently the Nobel Peace Prize, but the patents are up, so nobody can make a lot of money off of it. That's my editorializing the questions about that. So after
we're kind of limited as to what we can talk about here, but if anybody does want to get a little deeper into the rabbit hole of ivermectin, you could probably catch the latest clip from Jimmy Dore.
Yes.
He had the guy who invented the mRNA process on his show recently, and they went over a whole bunch of stuff which we can't talk about here.
Arturo Medina says, if Big Pharma suddenly had a drug that cures alcoholism, no way would they release it to the public, because then liquor sales will suffer. Well, a lot of people feel that that's also why we don't have a cure for cancer, Art, with all this medical research, is that it's more lucrative to treat cancer than to cure it. So after Wolski said she was refused the ivermectin that she requested, her friends urged supporters to protest outside the hospital. Then a prominent QAnon influencer encouraged people to call the facility and demand physicians agree to Wolski's request for ivermectin, Vice reported. Hospital spokeswoman Olga Solaris told Block Club the hospital had received hundreds of phone calls and emails associated with this patient's care. This completely brings us full circle to what we were talking about earlier. It's a tribal thing. It's politicized. You've got all these people calling and harassing the hospital now because of a QAnon conspiracy influencer. People self-medicating with ivermectin has resulted in overdoses, misuse, and adverse effects because doses of the medication some people are taking are intended for animals, not humans, according to the CDC. Wolski was publicly against COVID-19 vaccines, the Sun Times reported. A recent sign on the Kennedy overpass read, "Axe the Vax," when she was alive. And demonstrating up there. By Monday afternoon, an American flag was draped over the bridge that she used to frequent. Also tied to the fence were balloons and 3 bouquets of flowers. A blue wristband said Stormus Punus was also left on the bridge, a reference to QAnon. I have no idea what that means. So Dr. Allison Arwady, head of the Chicago Department of Public Health, has said 95% of Chicagoans hospitalized with and dying from COVID-19 are not vaccinated. Again, bringing us back to the heart of the crisis, the city's top doctor has urged people to take precautions like wearing a mask indoors in public to prevent the spread of COVID-19. So, bringing this all back to Veronica Wolski, it's sad, it's tragic. People listening to the conspiracy theorists or the political tribalists that are sowing divisiveness between people and medical science research, people just listen to the doctors that you trust. Maybe that's just what we just have to go on and constantly emphasize is, look, if you don't want to listen to what the media tells you, if you don't want to listen to what scientists and doctors on the news are telling you, then listen to what your doctor tells you, the doctor that's been treating you for your lifetime. That's probably the best place to go to make sure that you're protected and following the right protocols to protect yourself and your loved ones around you. It's a shame that this was this is a result of somebody that was feeding into what she was reading on social media, the conspiracy theories. I don't know that she had a doctor before she went into the hospital. If she didn't want to take the vaccination, and then she ends up in the hospital and she's asking the doctors there to give her ivermectin. They're like, no, because we don't have any evidence this is going to be helpful. I just wondered who was treating her before she got sick with the virus. It's a very sad situation, but it's a cautionary tale, if anything, as far as why people have got to, I think, listen to their own doctors and take some of this stuff more seriously.
Yeah, I don't know how much I want to say about about conspiracy theories, except some of those are actual conspiracies.
I'm all for a good conspiracy theory, Ed, and we should not dismiss conspiracy theories, because the whole point of conspiracy theories is trying to find truth when we've been told something else that completely conflicts with the evidence and the information in front of us.
Yeah, the thing I want to say about that is that a lot of people will dismiss talk about actual conspiracy using the phrase conspiracy theory in order to smear or discount something that might actually have merit sometimes. So when we say conspiracy theorists, it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have something to look into, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they do. People need to do research. People need to look for sources that they can trust. I know that's harder to do these days than it used to be. And I think some of the mainstream media is at fault for that, because they went out of their way to, put an empty podium on television back in 2016. Because they didn't want some guy who wanted to give everybody health care. And I wonder if everybody had a nationalized healthcare system, if the pandemic would have gotten as bad as it has here.
Well, Ed, in the middle of a pandemic, they still are denying health care for all. And we can blame the Democrats for that, too, for running the worst candidate next to Donald Trump. And I have to say this, too. I used to think Donald Trump was out of his fucking mind with the fake news label that he'd throw around all the time. Now, with CNN smearing Joe Rogan with the ivermectin stuff, and it's a horse dewormer, they're always referencing it's a horse dewormer without actually referencing that there are human dosages of the drug that are prescribed by doctors. sad to say, Trump was right with fake news. There is fake
Yeah.
news. We didn't want to believe it.
Although most of the time although most of the time I think when he was saying it just he would call anything that he didn't like fake news.
I understand that,
but it's a weird transformation because when you start to notice the propaganda,
yes,
you realize that a lot of it is fake news, and you have to learn how to read between the lines and learn what's true and what's an opinion. For example, if somebody starts their report with officials say, or
some people say,
or authorities have informed us, it doesn't necessarily mean that the next thing that comes out of their mouth is true. It just means that somebody told them something. Whether you decide to trust what they're saying is honestly up to you.
You'd think that the media that wanted to drive home what a crazy lunatic Trump was would engage in journalistic ethics. Instead, what they're doing with this kind of smearing is actually causing some people to be able to say, well, Trump was right. He may have been kind of right in the fact that they twist the narrative. He's not right about he's wrong about everything else. But the moment you give that little inch, it gives him credibility, and that's what's dangerous, is when the news is obviously being used to promote the propaganda of their narrative instead of just doing what we used to watch when we grew up. Walter Cronkite, John Chancellor, they're just there reading the news, not editorializing, and letting you make up your mind. And by the way, guys, we're not journalists, we're commentators. So we're not out there collecting the news. We're just sharing what we think about the news. So I don't want to misrepresent that like we're violating that type of journalistic ethic ourselves. But man, what a simpler time when you actually had newsmen just reporting what was going on instead of a 24/7 news cycle of people screaming at each other, advancing whatever political agenda that they're representing or whatever tribal mindset camp that they're in.
Yeah, or at least it was more difficult to tell back then when they were. I mean, if we have, let's say a news special comes on and says, this is the special on why nationalized healthcare is bad, sponsored by Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Right.
You gotta wonder, I wonder, could they be right?
Are all these commercials that we see on our cable news channels for the defense industries or the pharmaceutical companies, you're not going to get the full story from our cable networks when their main sponsors are Big Pharma, the military industrial complex.
Yeah, I don't want to throw everything under the bus with vaxes. I mean, people got to make their own decisions there, but I'm skeptical of the need for a booster. But I would wait. I would defer a final judgment until I hear more information. It sounded like the CDC was hesitant on that. It sounded like the establishment or the president was saying he was leaning that way, but he also was hesitant to give an official thing on that. And then I had watched, and you guys can see that probably on Door's clip, the guy who invented mRNA was skeptical of that too, and he had much more credibility than I have. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. I just wonder if down the road, 5 or 10 years from now, they're going to start adding, different branding and flavors to the boosters. So it'll be diet booster vax, cherry booster vax, like the way they have currently. I don't know if you've seen, how they advertise pharmaceuticals on TV now, and you see drugs getting advertised, and you're like, and they say, ask your doctor about this. And now the first time, I think in the past week, I saw one for flu vaccines, custom flu vaccine advertisements. Like you're supposed to pick a different flavor of flu vaccine from the different guys who manufacture them, and ask your doctor about, the Diet Cola flavored flu vaccine versus the extra caffeinated one or whatever.
It's the corporate states of America, Ed.
Yeah.
And we're not represented. It's the corporations and pharmaceutical companies and defense contractors and everybody else.